after the game.
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should there be an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now you're welcome along to the football show. So Mo Salah has just put Liverpool 3-0 up against Atalanta. 48 minutes on the clock, ran through from pretty much the halfway line, ball over the top, defender on his shoulder, got to the ball first, cut back onto his left foot, and you kind of know the rest from there. Diogo Jota has scored twice this evening for Liverpool, 3-0 up in Bergamo and in complete control. Elsewhere this evening, Man City 1-0 up against Olympiacos. Ferran Torres with the goal for City. Real Madrid 2-1 up on Inter. Karim Benzema and Ramos with the goals there. Bayern Munich 2-1 up away to Salzburg already this evening. 1-1 the result between Lokomotiv Moscow and Atletico Madrid. Daniel McDonnell of the Irish Independent with us. Evening, sir.
Evening, sir. How are you?
Very well. You didn't see any of Liverpool this evening, did you? They're in complete control.
No, I haven't had the opportunity now. I've been following a bit of the championship stuff, but yeah, they do seem pretty dominant. That's, routine stuff by the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, it really is. So a few bits going on. We might start with a point you made in the Irish Independent today. New CEO Jonathan Hill starts his role with the FAI. Not the worst week in that 13 million has arrived from government towards the FAI, but not the best year in that there's COVID and general issues, to say the least, across Irish football. Liverpool have just scored a fourth. Mane with the goal there. So Jonathan Hill starts his tenure, Dan.
He does, yeah. I mean, there's no good time to arrive, I guess, into the FAI. I mean, there hasn't been a good time at any stage in the last 18 months. I mean, I think Gary Owens was saying his goodbyes to people with an email today to staff. And I suppose the language refers to, not quite word for word, but, the difficult time, challenging times has been true, and hoping that the hard work that they've done in the last while will stand to them in the future, i.e. basically it's been firefighting really. And the term hasn't been used, but I think that's an accurate description of what's been happening in the FAI really since March 2019. And the appointment of a new permanent CEO is probably supposed to represent, was always meant to represent a change, a time to look forward, but there's still probably legacy issues, legacy debt, and then also COVID, of course, which is, just something that every business is grappling with to some degree, and that's left them it's left him with a probably unenviable task. I mean, listen, it's a well-paid job. In some ways, he has no baggage, so it's a great clean slate and an opportunity. But it's not exactly one where you can sort of have a honeymoon period either. No.
What are the big issues he needs to sort out or get thinking about even this side of Christmas? Immediate concerns?
Yeah, I sort of touched on it in a piece today. I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, sponsorship is an obvious one. There was a great response this week, to the new shirt with no sponsor on it, which is great. Like, it looks good, and I think people probably prefer that to some degree for a national shirt, but it's also reflective of the fact that the deal with 3 is up, and the FAI need to agree a deal with a new title sponsor. The League of Ireland, the Electricity League, as some would call it, is without electricity going forward. There's no title sponsor, so that's probably obvious areas. And I mean, in the short term and the long term, there's obviously a brand damage issue that they've had to grapple with, and that is probably overlaps with sponsorship. So like that, I mean, that's possibly the main area. I mean, he's been hired because of his commercial acumen. He was a commercial director with the English FA. This is why he's in, really. He's not been brought in because he's a good man for the grassroots or like a great football brain, although he apparently is engaged by all of those things. But it's very much his commercial expertise. So that's the main one. But then there's the obvious stuff as well, of perennial issues of what you're going to do with the League of Ireland, particularly in COVID times in 2021, and sort of simmering issues around, say, the grassroots, underage leagues, and issues around that too.
So 3 and the Irish Shirt have finished their partnership. Is this a scenario now, do you know, whereby there are several interested parties and it's a prize target to get on the Irish jersey, or will the FAI have to go out and try and drum up some interest? Do we know what the level of interest is?
I think it's possibly a bit of both. Like, I'm certainly aware of interest, all right. There would be probably a view there that I think there would be a view there high up in the FAI that even, that the FAI probably could have been doing better from a title sponsor deal, say relative to how maybe, rugby might have performed in that area too. Right. And I think there will be brands obviously looking at the FAI, but they possibly would have had their reservations about the FAI as well, given some things that have happened in recent times. So I think that that's probably part of it. I think people will always be interested, I think anyway, in being, of course, the lead sponsor with the FAI, but what the FAI's bargaining position off the back of the difficult time that they've had. So it's somewhere in between the two, and I think there has been a suggestion that, Jonathan Hill is very well contacted and might be able to bring in some new players to the game, through his contacts, maybe bring in a couple of extra options. But that's all a bit hypothetical discussions. I suppose in actuality, we would went to see it play out. But I think that, of course, they'll get a sponsor. I mean, naturally they will, but it's to what value they get it at is the question. You mentioned as well, actually, in your piece, there are some tensions at underage level. There have been tensions for quite some time over the national leagues and talk now of those leagues extending to under-13s level. And then there was a leak at the weekend regarding discouragement of younger players playing other sports at an elite level. What's going on here? Yeah, well, there is an under-13 league already. Now, that's been a sort of a contentious one when it was brought in for a couple of reasons. I mean, some would argue just basically it's too young to have a national, elite league. And then some, again, this is tied in, well, I suppose, the territorial aspect of, handing over responsibility to League of Ireland clubs at a younger level, which basically means that if you're not in the national underage leagues and you're an established schoolboy, nursery, academy, unless you have a link up of some kind, your players are basically probably gone at 12, and that's a problem. And there's a gap between under 13 and under 15, and there's issues around that. Now, they are seeking to plug some of those gaps. I think there's a plan for an under 14 league to fill a very important gap going forward. But part of the tensions relate to, there's ongoing tensions. The fresh stuff is related to the weekend. As you mentioned, a document that was circulated, sort of the rationale behind the under 13 league. And basically, in layman's, to summarise it to some degree, basically saying that, any kid involved with an under 13 league ideally wouldn't be playing elite level at another sport, which I guess would be, I suppose, the various development squads or academy level squads in the other major team sports. But I guess in theory that extends to any sport, athletics, any discipline. And while it wasn't explicitly saying you shouldn't play any other sports, it was sort of saying you shouldn't be competing in them to an elite level. And the argument against that would be that that's obviously forcing kids and parents and kids, people around them to make a decision very early when you could have a very talented all-rounder who might fancy their chances of trying out all three sports. I say three sports, that's very simplistic. Obviously, there's other sports they could be playing as well, but we know that in terms of the field sports, it's generally the competition is obviously between those. And so what form would this discouragement take? I mean, they're not going to tell kids explicitly you can't go and play another sport. No. Now, the thing is, I suppose there is an argument that if say, an under-13 team is training to the extent that they would ideally like to, and to some degree to an extent that you would like them to train, i.e., a number of nights a week, it's probably going to be quite hard for them naturally to be able to, say, for an athlete naturally to maybe fit in other sports at a very high level, because, I know the development squads kick in at different times in different sports, but if, say, you get to under 14 level, say, and you're involved with a county squad, say, it's going to be pretty hard anyway, and that sometimes it quite naturally happens that that people have to make the choice. But I guess if it's strongly discouraged, does that play into decisions when it comes to selecting, say, national underage squads under 13 level? That if kid A is very committed still to playing intercounty or whatever it is, even just a high level of club sport, are they going to be overlooked? I mean, it's an unseen pressure sometimes rather than a visible one. Now, there is a range of views on this. There's definitely a strong backlash against it. There is certainly a view that say early specialisation, that asking a kid to pick a sport early is negative, and there's obviously skills that can be transferred from one code to the other that can be helpful, very beneficial, and certainly there's an argument against it. There is probably a counterpoint view. I would have Stephen Bradley, the Shamrock Rovers manager, for example, would have argued that even under 13 league, in his view, is too old to be starting the national under league. He would prefer a national league at a younger age group. So there's a divergence of opinions here. But it does seem, I think, an overarching criticism would be that maybe a plan has been formulated by the FAI that isn't maybe reflective of the sporting culture in Ireland, which is very different to a sporting culture in football-dominated countries that don't have GAA and rugby. And that would be the argument, that maybe is the document realistic enough to reflect our terrain here? But there's other views on it, that if we will often talk about, well, we're not doing enough hours on the training pitch. So there's an argument that, well, possibly you do need that focus at an early age. So there's two sides to it, definitely.
So you mentioned there's a 13s National League and a 15s National League and no 14s. Are the plans imminent to have a 14s league? At the moment, does a player just go back to whatever, maybe, for instance, DDSL club he might have played at before going to the National League? That's
the problem, you see, that it's to do with this sort of relative age effect thing. There's obviously a big difference even in growth and development, and that's why there's such a high focus of talented footballers born in January and February, because they're ahead of their peers who are born in November, December. So like what you'll see is that some of the best players from under 13 might jump straight to under 15, but quite naturally it might be the ones from January, February, whereas you could have a kid, say, born in November, who's suddenly going in against players that are 18 months older than them, which isn't a great, development thing, because there could be just genetic reasons why they're struggling. The plan is, it appears that because we've basically had a lost year, really, because of COVID, that next year, that the current under 13 league this year, the players eligible for that, they will become an under 14 league next year. But it's the year after that they're planning then to have a 13s, 14s, 15s, it seems. Now, I think it makes sense to plug that gap. I really do. That was one of the large criticisms of the league, was that jump at under 13 to under 15 is not good. But so that's one, like that, they are probably, I think, solving a problem there, to be honest. But there still obviously would be people who would reject the idea that you should be picking an elite team at under 13 level, and that's a slightly different view. But I think once you go ahead with that policy, I think they had to fill the gap. I don't think anyone can really object to it. But yeah, you have a situation where someone go back to their DDSL clubs or their regional equivalent, and in some cases, I guess those clubs, it's not that they're not, like, once they've lost them to a degree, and is it a case that those who are sent back, having not made the jump to under 15, are they deemed like failures almost already? That there's an issue with that. There's definitely an issue with that.
Yeah, or there's a basic unfairness in that they come back and they're automatically put back into the team, and the per sucker who's been playing in their absence is reduced to the bench, but then the following year they'll go back up to 15s and then the sucker is brought back in. All of that stuff's not ideal.
There's a lot wrong with it. But at the same time, like I'm not going to go back on what I previously said. Like I think the National Underage Leagues broadly are a good idea, and it's the way that we should be going, and that the application of it in Dublin is very, very complicated due to long histories and in probably the major cities, but there are parts of the country who I think the National Underage Leagues have encouraged them to look at something where they haven't before, and sometimes the clubs need a shove to go that route. But there's a balancing act with it, and sometimes it seems like communication really has been an issue as much as anything. It's not so much the idea, it's how the idea has been brought in and implemented has been more of an issue than maybe the idea itself. And that would certainly be a thing. But like, unfortunately, like Jonathan Hill will find, and anyone who comes in from outside to the Irish football will find that you're inheriting like what is basically a very imperfect system, but there are understandable reasons why it came into pass, to do with history, to do with traditional disinterest from the League of Ireland when it comes to this area, and the culture of getting players away, and why there's a currency in it, and some clubs trade off that as well too, and it's not really a joined up thinking, and there's a combination of factors there that it's very hard for someone to come in and change it.
Yeah.
And that's that's the problem, and there's no easy fix for it, and that will continue to be so to some degree.
Okay, well, Jonathan Hill starts as CEO this week. Shamrock Rovers presented with the League of Ireland trophy tomorrow. They've issued an appeal to fans to stay away. They're hosting St. Pat's tomorrow at Tala, and they're going to be presented with the trophy first time since 2011. They've asked fans not to gather outside for obvious reasons, so that's what's going on. I presume, Dan, like, what kind of dynasty are we looking here with Rovers? I was going to say, I presume they're favourites for next season already.
Yeah, like they're in. I mean, you even go back to the general debate what we're having before. I mean, sometimes you'll have a team that wins the league and they have a really strong first team, but then you sort of look at what's below it. But Rovers do have also is like, you know, a pretty strong academy set up now. Now they're still, I mean, it's still not necessarily paying its way yet, and they have to figure that out to some degree. You know, they've had Gavin Bazunu go away to Man City, and that was a massive success story. You know, a player, and he was very much their player as well, who's gone, you know, for sort of close to 500 grand, and they probably still need a couple of those every so often to make it work. But generally, what you have is a very strong first team at the moment with a good age profile, and you have below it a lot of good young players knocking on the door, you know, to break in around the team or to go away, you know, to the UK and be able to actually command a proper fee for them. So they're well set up. You know, they have a good stadium, which is even getting better through the council. You know, there's plans that in a couple of years' time they're going to be playing out of a sort of a close to 10,000 seater venue. They have their own training ground and facilities, and they have a good setup. And really, there's no reason for Rovers to look back now. We've talked about Cork City's problems in recent times. You know, Rovers are a fan-owned club, but it also has the investment and the support of Dermot Desmond that's come into the mix as well, too. So, listen, I'm loath to declare something with any certainty in the League of Ireland because it's very hard. But say, like in recent years, you've had Dundalk with a massive injection of money, but they've imploded a small bit this year, and they haven't really built the infrastructure from the bottom up to support them. And you know, the stadium and so on, the structures that are there. Whereas Rovers now have got to the top of the tree, and it looks like they do have that. So really, they would want to make an awful mess of it to go too far back from where they are. You can't account for what happens in Europe. You still need a couple of good draws and things to bounce your way to make that breakthrough. But really, domestically, they're in a very good place at the moment. Yes, they might lose Jack Byrne. Yes, they will face issues with that, but they're not as vulnerable as other champions might be to the slide down the table that we've seen, unfortunately, happen a lot of times.
James Milner just coming on the pitch for Liverpool. They're now 5-0 up against Atalanta. Diogo Jota has scored a hat-trick this evening. Sadio Mane has scored. Mohamed Salah has scored. They are cruising home, 5-0 away to Atalanta. That's a serious result. Man City still 1-0 at home to Olympiacos, and Real Madrid 2-1 up at home to Inter. Ryan Giggs, Dan, this has Nations League implications from an Irish point of view. He's not going to be involved in the game against Ireland this month. So, 46 years old now, Ryan Giggs. He was arrested and later bailed over an alleged row with his partner Kate Greville at his home. The Football Association of Wales and Ryan Giggs have mutually agreed, according to their statement, that he will not be involved in the upcoming international camp. Our immediate priority is preparing the team for the upcoming international matches. Robert Page, with Ryan's support, will take charge for the next 3 matches against the USA, Republic of Ireland and Finland. Wales had been due to announce their squad this morning, but those plans were shelved last night as news broke of Giggs' arrest. So they're going to announce their squad instead on the 5th of November. 2 police cars were parked outside Giggs' house in Greater Manchester Sunday following reports of a disturbance. Greater Manchester Police have said that police were called 10:05 p.m. Sunday to reports of a disturbance. Woman in her 30s sustained minor injuries but did not require any treatment. A 46-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of Section 47 assault and Section 39 common assault. Police added that the arrested man was later released on bail pending further inquiries. Ryan Giggs' representatives have released a statement. Mr. Giggs denies all allegations of assault made against him. He's cooperating with the police. he will continue to assist them with their ongoing investigations. There is probably not a huge amount more we can say about that, Dan, for obvious reasons. So he won't be there for the Ireland match.
No, like there isn't really much more you can say. No. As you said, we can't really go down any route. All we can say, I guess, is that like clearly, like the Welsh FA have taken assertive action quickly in the sense of putting plans in place for the month ahead, and we can only wait to see what comes of it. But certainly, it certainly raises a lot of questions, and it would naturally be quite unsettling for Wales, for those games. I mean, of course it is. At reasonably short notice this has happened, but obviously there's a far bigger thing going on here, and certainly serious allegations that just needs to run its course, I guess. But it seems it's trivial to talk about. Well, what does this mean for the football team? Like there's an element of that with it, but it probably it is an unsettling one for them, and they are reasonably big games for Wales, and they're obviously important games for Ireland, and this is probably going to be the story that hangs over the Welsh camp, certainly for the entirety of the gathering. You can sure even any player that's rolled out to speak, I'm sure they'll be told, well, you can't speak about this, but of course it's going to be there for them. Yes,
they'll be asked about it in 200 different ways. For Ireland then, before that Welsh game, there is England next Thursday. So Thursday week. People get confused with next and this in the world of days of the week, Dan. There is this Thursday, the game is not happening this Thursday. There is next Thursday, the game is happening. So England-Ireland at Wembley. And a win for Stephen Kenny.
Well, that's your prediction, is it?
Well, it would be nice. It would just help. It would just be a bomb into the conversation around Stephen Kenny in Ireland.
Yeah, like it's another marathon window, this one, like it's 3 games. Like it's other than major tournaments, we don't have 3 games in one go until last month and now this month.
They're quite long. I've now realised 2 is just fine. 2 is about right. I thought 3 was a bit of a marathon the last time.
Well, I mean, with the way it panned out as well too. Like if the Slovakia game had been won, then maybe the next 2 games you're talking about permutations and excitement. But certainly the COVID drama. There was 2 away trips either side of a home game, and to be honest, like the days off seemed to be as well. Maybe I'm looking selfishly from reporting, but like the days off were almost as draining as the match days, purely because there was so much going on, and there was late nights with sort of the COVID stuff and the camp and stuff. What they've done this time, people may not be aware that they're basically moving house to the UK, really, and because there's England and then there's Wales back to back away, so rather than coming here, it's going to be over there. And that's the game to Bosnia was shelved. This England thing come up at short notice, and the only travelling they have to do in this camp is from wherever, Cardiff or wherever they fly from, to Dublin, and that's it. So really, the COVID dramas shouldn't be there this time that there was the last time, and maybe it doesn't drag as much, Joe, when we're just talking about the games. The one thing I would say for Stephen Kenny, like England away, tough game. I think you could play well and lose. Wales away, very important game. We saw the last time, competitive. You could have Gareth Bale thrown into it, but Ireland missed a load of players for that game as well. For the Welsh game, that was the one where they lost sort of the 4 in the morning of the game, and then Bulgaria at home, which for me in some respects is almost the most important one of the 3, purely because it's the last one. It's a very winnable game, and I think if you win that match, it just allows a bit of breathing time to go into the winter, And there's no doubt that you can talk about signs of progress, but it's possible after Wales that it's no wins in 7. Like it's very plausible that that's the case. But then you have to sort of win that Bulgaria game and just, sort of not finish bottom of that group. And there's obviously permutations around being second seeds and stuff. And I sort of feel like this window has to end on a high. And of course, I mean, it'd be great if it started with 1 and you could do something at Wembley, but it's almost, there's an opportunity to take some momentum out of it. So they almost need to get better as the window goes on as much as started on a high.
Manchester United are in Champions League action tomorrow, so they were doing their press today. They're in Istanbul. Harry Maguire has responded to Roy Keane's claims that they lack leaders. What would you guess he said, Dan?
We have leaders.
Yeah.
That'll be my theory.
Not just we have leaders. There are a lot of leaders, says Harry Maguire in this squad. I'm the captain. I've got a lot of leadership around me as well, staff players. So for sure, there are a lot of leaders in this squad.
No one ever says at the time we actually don't have enough leaders in this group. It's a bit like, people say now there's no characters in the game anymore, unlike 10 years ago, where 10 years ago they said there was no characters in the game either. Yeah. And it goes back. Like 10 years from now, we'll be talking about how there's no defenders around like Harry Maguire anymore. There'll be absolutely no doubt that will happen.
But 10 years ago, I didn't know Kenny Cunningham was like Kenny Cunningham.
It's very true. It's actually very true. Yeah, like it's like, I don't know. I mean, Roy Keane's a dream for Sky, really, isn't he?
Oh, did you watch it post-match on Sunday?
I didn't watch it live, but I've watched it back, obviously. And
it was phenomenally good TV. Like, it was just brilliant to watch. I watched it live, and I mean, everything and anything around me was being shushed.
You can't help it. You turn the volume up when he's talking. I've said this before. Even though, like, you know what's coming, like, you can predict it. It's like a greatest hits collection a lot of the time. You know what he demands of a Manchester United team. You know what he's going to say, but you still like listening to him say it. And like that's the market value that will never leave him. And particularly when it comes to Manchester United, because if he speaks in those terms about Liverpool or Arsenal or whatever, it doesn't have anywhere near the same impact as it does when he's talking about United, and particularly when it's known that, like, he is probably, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is one of the people that he's on reasonably good terms with, and it probably is that bit more impactful when he has to now respond to his comments, even if the comments were like, well, he probably knew what he was going to say too. It's not as if he's taken by surprise by Roy Keane's comments. He knew what those comments were probably going to be. There's
always an extra, though, creative frisson in the dynamics. This time it was Tim Cahill, and he was actively, like, jibing Cahill. Like, he was like, I dare you to come back at me. And in fairness to Cahill, Cahill took an interesting route. I suspect it may be repeated by others down the line, which is to completely ignore Roy and just keep talking to Dave Jones. Not even to make eye contact. Not even to make eye contact with Keane as he's going, how many times have Arsenal won? How many times have Arsenal won? And he just refused. There wasn't even an or a pause. He was just talking straight to Dave Jones. Quite impressive, really. Best moment was when Jamie Redknapp asked Keane, how does he do this with a straight face? When Keane had said that calling Mikel Arteta Mikel instead of Gaffer showed a lack of respect. And Dave Jones said, oh, just modern football, no? No, lack of respect. And Redknapp just had to... just had to laugh and said, how do you do this with a straight face? And even Keane gave a little smirk.
Yeah, and it's a bit of theatre. Like, I think sometimes with Roy Keane as well, people always assume when he's in full flight. You've been on a stage with him now, when he's taken off on one. But there's always an assumption that everyone else with him is naturally terrified.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Joe, but I think you possibly might have been. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there would be probably, people in football talk and players talk and stuff. I think a lot of people who are aware of the Roy Keane managerial stories, some of his ex-players, probably some of the people he spoke about that night on stage with you, they don't see Roy Keane in the way that the audience do.
No, well, and also
true.
There's also a big, understandably, there's a power imbalance when we're on stage with Roy Keane versus people at a level. Like Redknapp, Tim Cahill have no reason whatsoever to be terrified of Roy Keane. You know what I mean? There's no issue
people assume that they do, though. You know what I mean? Like, the viewer likes to think, oh, geez, he's... Like, they're not... A lot of them actually aren't,
No,
in the way that
they're
people
definitely
assume.
not, no. So Manchester United have leaders, says Harry Maguire. Roy Keane says they don't. Solskjaer, by the way, was asked about it as well. This is the thing now, Sky get 2, 3, 4 days out of this stuff, in that there's the response from the players and then there'll be a response from Keane at a later date. So Solskjaer said, Roy has always been outspoken. I'm very glad I've got the players I have here. We've got different jobs. Roy's job is to give his opinion. I always listen to Roy. He said ASAP. I always listen to Roy, but we move on here with a great group of players, strong group of players. Away from that sideshow, the post-match and the leadership thing and all of that stuff, where is Solskjaer, do you think, Dan? Premier League form is really worrying, and on the face of it, he doesn't have a huge amount of wiggle room. Champions League form is unbelievably good.
Yeah, I still stick to the view, and this isn't an original view, like it's been expressed by others, that really he's never any more than 1 or 2 bad results away from a sort of a crisis setting. I think that remains the case. Like, they're just not convincing enough. And I'm just not sure if that'll ever change, because even when, like, it would need a dramatic turnaround, like, you know, a sort of a trophy winning turnaround, because until he gets to that, I just feel like it's always going to be 1 step forward and maybe 2 back sometimes. Like, and I don't know. Like, sometimes, like, the strength of the Premier League, it can be debated, but I've taken maybe the contrary view at times. But, like, the Premier League results in Europe this year have been very, very good.
Yeah.
In general, and yet, so I wonder to the extent to which it can be misleading. Yeah, they were brilliant against Leipzig, but I don't know. Like, I mean, I think you have to judge them by those league performances at home, as much as home counts for something with no fans, and they're just not convincing. And it just feels like it's never going to get. Even when there's a turnaround, there's a sense of, oh, well, isn't it great things are turning around for him, and maybe he needs more time. I don't know what he needs to do to get the discussion where he's really got the feet under the table and he can withstand 3 bad results. You know, what does he have to do to get to a position where it's not a talking point if he has 3 bad results in a row? But I don't know, is that beyond him to ever get to that point? I think there's certainly a debate around that. And I don't know how you feel about it, but, like, you know, it just feels like that, you know, obviously it's apples and oranges to a degree, but, like, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, kind of 3, 4, 5 bad results in a row nearly, and there's different discussion about him. Whereas now with Solskjaer, seems like he's on thin ice all the time for me, and I think it's going to end eventually. You know, and it depends on how much longer it goes on for.
I think overtake a City or a Liverpool in the league before that conversation stops.
Probably so.
Maybe not necessarily,
probably something like that.
Maybe not necessarily win a league, but certainly make concrete progress like that. And look, I mean, the reality as well, just look at that team. It's just blatantly obvious increasingly Shaw's not good enough. I said it to Pat Nevin last night. Shaw's not good enough. Wan-Bissaka, as good as he is in one-on-one defensive situations, overall, Wan-Bissaka's not good enough. Lindelof's not good enough. Harry Maguire's just about good enough if you have pace beside him. And then arguably the McTominay, Matic, whoever the base of that midfield is only just about okay, and really probably not good enough either if you're comparing to the top 3 or 4 clubs. And then who knows what the situation with Pogba is. So, I mean, you're still there at over half a team, basically.
Oh, yeah, and there's no guarantee that the next, like, if there's the next person in, that they fix it either, of course, but we know how it happens. When you're struggling around, eventually the manager just goes and they try that as a solution.
Yeah, it's the cheapest.
That's just the game.
Cheapest solution.
It is.
The cheapest signing they can make is Mauricio Pochettino. That's the blatant truth. Very
fair, but it happens.
Yeah, totally. One last very quick one if I can, Dan, and we'll keep it very brief. Dundalk are in Europa League action on Thursday. They lost 1-0 to Molde, first day out at home. Beaten 3-0 at the Emirates. They have Rapid Vienna away Thursday, 5-6. Where are Vienna by way of comparison with Molde? They were beaten 2-1 at home to Arsenal. They lost to Molde 1-0 away. So they sound like they're of a vaguely similar pitch to Dundalk, maybe slightly better, certainly at home.
Oh, yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah, I mean, they definitely give it back. Like, they came closer to hurting Arsenal than Dundalk did, to be fair.
Okay.
But surprisingly beaten. Like, it seems like Molde were way better than them in the game in Norway last week. So it's hard to know. Austrian sides are very strong in Europe generally this year. Some of them are getting very good results. So they should be a level up, but I suppose their results might give Dundalk some encouragement that, they can get something out of the game on Thursday. But I still think it's a big ask, you know. It's a big ask. Dundalk. I've spoken to Dundalk players who've played against Austrian sides in pre-season in recent memory and found them very strong. So I think Dundalk they'll have a hill to climb there still.
Okay, Dan McDonnell, Irish Independent. Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Liverpool 5-0 up, as we mentioned, on Atalanta. Man City still 1-0 up on Olympiacos. Real Madrid 3, Inter 2. Seems like a very good game at the Bernabeu this evening. Karim Benzema, Sergio Ramos. Then Martinez pulled one back for Inter. Perisic made it 2-2. And just in the last few moments, Rodrigo has made it 3-2 to Real Madrid. Back in 1 second.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Tonight, America will decide who its next president is going to be. And Newstalk will be bringing you the election live. Join me, Simon Tierney, in a special edition of Race to the White House on election night as we track live results, give you full analysis and bring you interviews from on the ground stateside.
Race to the White House with Simon Tierney.
Tune in from 11 p.m. tonight.
On Newstalk.
Looking for professional tools and safety supplies? Then you need CoalfieldIndustrial.com, one of Ireland's largest Irish-owned suppliers with over 50,000 items in stock. CoalfieldIndustrial.com offers quality tools, safety gear and equipment from all the top brands like DeWalt, Snickers, Bosch, Stanley, Baco and more. So whether you're a professional tradesman or a DIY enthusiast, shop online at CoalfieldIndustrial.com.
All Harvey Norman stores remain open until 6 p.m. daily for home appliances and essential technology. That's right, shop safely in our spacious stores for all your essential needs. Get laptops, tablets, mobile phones, cookers, dryers, washing machines, fridges, home office furniture and more. Shop safely in our spacious stores or shop our full range of appliances, technology, furniture and bedding online for click and collect or nationwide 7 days a week home delivery. Harvey Norman, open until 6 p.m. daily for home appliances and essential technology.
Go! You're the one who takes steps to keep your home as safe as can be. Who knows the best gift you can give it is a house alarm? Well, at Aviva, we think you deserve something in return, like 40% off your home insurance if your claim's free for 5 years, and up to 12.5% off with an approved house alarm. So buy your policy today at aviva.ie. For home insurance, you're safe in the hands of Aviva.
Acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. Offer subject to minimum premium of €230, €115 for contents or buildings only. Alarm must be approved, installed and maintained in line with manufacturer's guidelines. Aviva Direct Ireland Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
There are plenty of reasons to get an official Volkswagen service, from the expertise of a Volkswagen master technician to the confidence in using only Volkswagen genuine parts. However, to the majority of drivers, only one reason really matters: what you get when you bring it all together, an official service history. In fact, 78% of Irish drivers would pay more for your Volkswagen if it has a full Volkswagen service history. Help protect your resale value and keep your Volkswagen a Volkswagen. Book your classic service from only €179 at volkswagenservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
They said it couldn't be done. A marketing tool so immediate, your message can reach the nation at the speed of sound. Okay, look, it's radio. Yes, radio. And because it's so simple to make, you can write your brilliant ad today, record it in the morning,
Take one.
and be on air by tea time. And don't worry, you can still sound fancy.
Notions.
Radio. We let people know your business.
Find out more at newstalk.com/advertising.
Since 2000, Ireland's domain registry.ie has helped put Irish businesses and communities on the world stage with the uniquely Irish.ie identity and online address. We've helped businesses and people to start and to thrive online. To celebrate 20 years of Irish success online, .ie is giving away €20,000. All you need is to have an active .ie website. If you do, simply visit weare.ie to enter the draw. T's and C's apply. That's weare.ie. .ie. We are Ireland Online.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now then, you're very welcome back. It's still 5-0 Liverpool in the Champions League against Atalanta, and Manchester City are now 2-0 up at home to Olympiacos at the Etihad this evening. Gabriel Jesus with the goal on 81 minutes. FA Cup was on at the weekend. Manchester City were involved again, the Women's FA Cup. 3-1 winners after extra time against Everton, 1-1 at normal time. This is the 2020 final delayed. Kathryn Batte is with us of the Daily Mail. It was at Wembley. Kathryn, sounds like it was a decent finish in the end.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most competitive women's finals the last few years. We've seen kind of Man City dominate over the last couple of years, but Everton pushed them really close and obviously took them to extra time, but didn't quite have enough in the tank to take it to penalties.
The stat which jumped out to me is that Sunday's result continues the dominance of City, Arsenal and Chelsea. 6 years now, all domestic trophies have been won by one of those three. So not since Liverpool won the league in 2014 has anybody else got a sniff. So City, Arsenal, Chelsea, very much in control. Is that showing any signs of changing?
Well, if you look at the league table, I mean, obviously, I think Everton is second at the minute, and Manchester United are up there as well, and City have dropped points to the likes of Reading and Brighton. So the league's definitely more competitive than it was a few years ago. When we get to the end of the season, perhaps we will still see the same three, but we kind of talk maybe more about a top five now than a top three with those clubs. We saw a lot of stars coming into the league over the summer. Man United bringing in Kristen Press and Tobin Heath, Everton signing Valerie Govin. So definitely those clubs that are in and around the mid-table have strengthened and are competing a lot more than they did perhaps a couple of years ago. So we might see a few more teams kind of challenge at the top of the table where we haven't been previously.
It seems like it's a rapidly changing landscape, the women's game at the moment. Man City aren't around that long for all the success. Manchester United were late to the game, but they're making inroads. It seems like money has been pumped in of late, say over the last 5 years in particular. There's almost a degree of catch-up on.
Yeah, well, I think the women's game's become a lot more of an attractive proposition for these top clubs. We see Spurs as well coming in, bringing Alex Morgan to the league. So those clubs that kind of dominate in the men's football, which when perhaps they didn't dominate in women's football, now kind of taking a more keen interest in the women's game, which is obviously good to see. And yeah, it's obviously a lot more competitive. And yeah, I see Manchester United to have been such a big club and not had a women's team in the top league for such a long time. Was always quite puzzling to a lot of people, but it's great to see them kind of up there challenging now.
It feels like we're seeing more of it on TV as well. I don't know, am I imagining that, or do the stats back that up?
Yeah, we're seeing definitely more games on BT and on BBC as well. But obviously, all the games in the WSL are available to watch on the FA's player app as well, so they are very accessible. But usually there is a women's game a week from the WSL. We've got Women's Football Weekend coming up in a couple of weeks, where every game is actually on at a different time. So a couple of those games televised, and it just allows kind of fans to watch more than one game across the weekend, which is obviously good.
This has been a horrible year for lots of people and lots of fronts, not least sport. The men's game, because of the money at stake, got back up and running pretty quickly. It was a slower ordeal almost for the women to get back up and running. The FA Cup final happening in basically November proves the point. So where are we on that front?
Well, obviously the league restarted in September. I think the majority of people said it was the right decision to cancel the league in May, just because of how difficult it would have been to restart. But I think you have to give WSL clubs and Championship clubs as well a lot of credit for getting the league back up and running. And you know, the amount of positive tests that we've seen in the clubs has been very low, which is obviously good to see as well. And yeah, I think the FA Cup has been announced today. That's this season's FA Cup has been paused. So it might be delayed again, just because obviously the clubs that are currently competing aren't at the elite level. But the WSL Championship, as far as we know, are going to continue as they have been doing, which is obviously great to see.
Yes, okay. You guys are back into lockdown. Is it around now, this week?
Yeah, from Thursday. From Thursday is when we go back to lockdown.
It's hard to keep track of who's in lockdown and who's not in Europe at the moment. Basically, we all are at some stage or other. So women's football at the elite level is going to continue during the strictest of lockdowns over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. The top two divisions, the WSL Championship will continue the league matches and the Continental Cup matches, but the FA Cup's been paused for the current lockdown.
You mentioned there the influx of US players coming to England, and we're seeing several. We had our first US player score in an FA Cup final, for instance, at the weekend. Is this a demonstration of a shift in power towards England over the US? I mean, it certainly feels like the US is still the epicenter, the strongest area of the game. But some of these bigger names coming over, I guess, is a response to the money being pumped in.
Yeah, I think for some players, they want to experience something new as well. And with the clubs kind of investing a lot more money, obviously they kind of want to come over and experience that. I think the proof will be how long they stay for. A lot of them are on sort of short contracts, a couple of them are on loan. So it'll depend kind of how long they commit their futures to playing in England and whether they want to stay here or eventually go back to America. I think a lot of them came over because the American League, I don't think is currently continuing the normal format. I think that was Alex Morgan's one of the main reasons she decided to come over to England was because she'd had so long not playing after giving birth that she didn't want, another long period of not playing again. So I think that was one of the reasons for some of them coming over. So the proof will be whether we can keep hold of them and whether they want to stay.
Okay. And what is the gap like in terms of, say, something like average wages between English football and the game in the States?
That's a question. I think, well, I mean, you see clubs like Chelsea, I think they offered Sam Kerr a record deal to get her over in January. And obviously Chelsea paid a record fee for Pernille Harder as well. So there's clearly an attraction to come over here. Otherwise, ultimately, the players wouldn't be coming. So it can't be too varied. I can't say for certain how much the US stars were on over there. Yeah. It's a little bit complicated given the national team's context with their contracts and sponsorship, which has obviously been quite controversial over there as well. So I think we must be competitive. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get them over here.
Yeah, for sure. And is the general standard improving? I mean, are you seeing that over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, this infusion of money? I presume we're seeing that manifest itself on the pitch, or maybe I'm totally wrong in that. Maybe 7, 8 years ago, the standard was every bit as good, just it had more of an amateur status.
Yeah, I think it's definitely improved. As the game's turned professional, you can see the differences. Obviously, clubs training every day. And we go back to when Liverpool won the last trophy outside that top three. Clubs were still sort of not training every day. They weren't professional. Liverpool weren't training every day at that time. So obviously that move to there, you can see the improvement in standards as well. And obviously the other clubs sort of strengthening and bringing some stars over here. There is still a gap between some of the clubs at the bottom. We've seen kind of a few what you might call freak results of Arsenal thrashing a few teams and Chelsea thrashing a couple of teams. But also you've got those clubs like Reading and Brighton that are holding clubs like Man City with all these stars to draws. And so yeah, the league's very competitive.
How's it going to play out then? Arsenal looking in really good form. Everton, you mentioned, were second. We have Manchester United now making serious inroads. Chelsea are there, Man City in fifth, and they're talking about kicking on the back of this FA Cup win. Who's likely to come out on top this season, or is there a strong favourite, Kathryn?
Well, this is the thing. I think of the traditional top three, any of them could probably end up winning it, and it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. It is basically wide open. I think we're probably it's a season too quick for a club like Man United or Everton to win it. I think it probably will still be one of those top three between City, Arsenal and Chelsea. But what might decide it might be their results against the clubs like Everton and Manchester United. If we saw United hold Chelsea to a draw in the first game, if United could hold City or take points off them, or they play Arsenal at the weekend, if they can get a result there, that will obviously help the other clubs. But I think if I was to go off gut, I think the strength of Chelsea's squad, I mean, Casey Stoney, the United manager, a few weeks ago said Chelsea could field 2 11s, and she's not wrong. Right. Their bench is really strong. So I think over the course of the season, I would say Chelsea probably the favourites to retain the title.
OK, well, we'll check in with you across the course of the season, see how it's going. Kathryn Batte of the Daily Mail. Thanks so much, Kathryn. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Cheers, Joe.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. GamblingCare.ie.
Nailed it! And the online shopper of the month is...
You look very smug.
I've just changed my car insurance to AIG and got 20% off online.
I'm impressed. I thought premiums were going up.
A word from the wise. Shop around. And speaking of shopping, that 20% saving will come in very handy. Thanks, AIG.
For a quote, go to AIG.ie and see how much you could save. Normal underwriting acceptance criteria apply. Minimum premium of €330 plus levies apply. Applies to new AIG direct car customers only. Offer valid until December 31st, 2020. AIG Europe SA is authorised by the Luxembourg Ministry of Finance and supervised by the Luxembourg Commissioner for Insurance and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business.
All Harvey Norman stores remain open until 6 p.m. daily for home appliances and essential technology. That's right, shop safely in our spacious stores for all your essential needs. Get laptops, tablets, mobile phones, cookers, dryers, washing machines, fridges, home office furniture and more. Shop safely in our spacious stores or shop our full range of appliances, technology, furniture and bedding online for click and collect or nationwide 7 days a week home delivery. Harvey Norman, open until 6 p.m. daily for home appliances and essential technology.
Go!
We want to do more for the planet, more for the future, more supporting, rallying, having our voices heard more. But to do more, to be carbon neutral, sometimes we need to do less. Less printing, flying and fossil fuel driving, less denial and delays and doing nothing.
AIB is the first Irish bank to pledge to operate as carbon neutral by 2030. We pledge to do more. Allied Irish Banks plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
What a time to turn 17. Months in your prime on pause, classrooms gone, training gone, summer slipped by. No face-to-face, let alone the shift. And don't even start on the leaving. Everything upturned, hard lessons learned. But sit and dwell? Never. No matches to play, but what matters remains. Staying focused, staying sharp, standing together. A united front for the future, however it plays out. Times like these teach you everything you need to know about yourself. The Electric Ireland GAA Minor Championships might be on hold, but our support is still major.
A beautiful bouquet of flowers. It can say more than words ever could. To celebrate, congratulate, or just let someone know you're thinking of them. At flowers.ie, we know every bouquet is special. So every order we receive is hand-picked, arranged with care, and delivered with love across Ireland. We even send a video before it's delivered, so you know it's just right. Say it with flowers at www.flowers.ie. Rated 5 stars on Trustpilot.
At Guaranteed Irish, we believe enterprise is at the heart of thriving communities.
Like Me to You, the nationwide multi-store gift card accepted in over 5,000 retailers, including Brown Thomas, Penneys, Lifestyle Sports, Tesco, and exclusively in Smith's Toys, Applegreen and Home Store and more. It's also the gift card of choice for many of Ireland's largest and best-known employers, so remember me2u.ie when rewarding staff this year, while also supporting Irish retail. Available online or in-store at Applegreen. So look out for it. Guaranteed Irish. Altogether better.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Okay, so we're coming up on full times. They're into added time at the Bernabeu. Real Madrid still 3-2 up on Inter. Man City have kicked on late on against Olympiacos. It's now 3-0. Jesus with a goal on 81 minutes and Consejo with the goal on 90. So 3-0 winners this evening, Man City. As for Liverpool, well, just cruise control in Bergamo this evening. 5-0 winners against Atalanta. In their same group, Ajax, despite having 11 players positive with COVID, have beaten Midtjylland by 2-1 away. Elsewhere, Porto 3, Marseille 0. And Bayern Munich, well, they look good again this year. 6-2 winners away to Salzburg. So that is where we are in the Champions League this evening. OTBAM, as usual, coming at you tomorrow morning. Johnny Kennedy's going to join the lads, owns the Long Hole pub in New York. America's going to wake up. Possibly, we'll see how close it is to call. To a new US president, or maybe the same US president. There's something to think about late tonight. They will also have Tommy Welch on the hurling, and Lee Chin's going to join them as well. Mark Lawrenson will be talking about Liverpool tonight. Tomorrow evening, Nathan in the hot seat. I'm going to be away recording a Super Value Roadshow, but James Ryan is going to be on Wednesday Night Rugby. There'll be more from Harry Redknapp and Glenn Hoddle, and reaction as well to Champions League. United in action tomorrow in Istanbul. That is all on the way. Stay tuned, there'll be election coverage right across the night here in News Talk. In the meantime, Tom Dunn on the way next.